Welcome back, guys. This is Dundermoose, host of the show called This is Dundermoose. And I have an amazing guest. I'm really excited to bring you the man himself, P. Alexander from Cirsova. I have been aware of this dude for a long time, since even before I was a bro, since I was just reading about it from the outside. And I'm hearing about this. I've seen this hashtag BroSR on X. It was Twitter at the time, if you all guys will remember. And I'm hearing about these crazy uh always on bro games with the United Caveman Federation and the Grug memes. And then I start looking into this guy, and he's a publisher of indie fiction. I got my copy right here of the complete Mongoose and Meerkat. So I got a lot of stuff I'm interested in talking to you about, man. And I think maybe we'll start off by just letting them know you got a lot of stuff coming up on the horizon, right? How can people get a bite of some of this Cirsova goodness?
Well, all of our releases are on Amazon. We run Kickstarters for any new single author projects. You can go to our website there, cirsova.wordpress.com. You can follow us on X at Cirsova. If you sign up for our mailing list, you actually get advanced links to where you can buy hardcover copies of the magazine earlier than everybody else before the link goes live. And if you just keep an eye out for things, you'll see all our new releases coming down the pipeline. We have got a lot of stuff going on.
Right on. Well, I'm going to start chucking some in the chat. So I've got the Amazon link to the complete Tales of Mongoose and Meerkat. So if you guys want those, you want to tell us a little bit about that series, because it's been going for a while, right? And this is kind of like the omnibus version.
We started serializing them in, I think, 2017. Jim Brayfogle is one of our oldest authors. He started with us in our second issue back in 2016.
Wow.
And he came to us and said, I've got this series of this adventuring duo. Would you be interested in running it as a series? And I'm like, well, let's look at the first few, see how they do. And they were pretty popular. They were really good stories. And he's like, I've got the entire series finished if you want. I'm like, we'll just go ahead and buy all 18 of them and run them consecutively, one each issue. And over the years, we collected them in 3 individual volumes. These are fully illustrated by Dark Philly.
Mm-hmm.
And this year we came out with a coffee table omnibus edition, as well as an executive trade paperback edition that collects all 18 of the stories in a single volume, has a few new illustrations, and also contains a new epilogue story. And one of the stretch goals we hit, we collected all of the RPG bonus material that I wrote for Mongoose and Meerkat.
Oh, nice.
That was one of the things that we did as stretch goals for the individual volumes, was writing up RPG content that could be used to quickly adapt the stories into adventures that you could drop into your game.
That's awesome.
Because one of the things that I got really into back around the time that I started the magazine was figuring out how to adapt short pulp fiction into Dungeons and Dragons stuff with just a few simple notes and some stat blocks.
Okay. And how had that been received? Like, have you talked to anybody who's used your conversions in their own home games?
I know that Not John Dacre has actually run several of the things that
right on.
Yeah, Not John's actually one of the few. In fact, he might be the only person in the Bro SR who has actually met me in real life and gamed with me in real life.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so
he was playing the very first session I played of Trilopulus. He and I were like the thieves. We were sneaking ahead, and it was his orc or his half orc and my gnome. It vividly burned in my mind just the feeling of, like, I totally didn't know anything about 1E, I was just trying to. I just learned enough to create a character, and it just the thrilling feel of sneaking into a dark cave, with somebody as ruthless as Jeffro Johnson as the DM.
Yeah.
And I was glad to have not John Dacre at my side. Right on. Okay, let me drop another one in here. So this is the Amazon link to your magazine, which 25 is coming out.
Yeah. Don't let the numbering confuse you. We're like well over 30 issues. We just restarted our numbering after the first 10 issues, plus we
Oh,
had
okay.
3 specials. So I think this is actually something like our 36th issue, but
Okay.
it's number 23. It'll be dropping on June 19th.
Okay.
And
Number
ebook,
23 for the
paperback, and
summer
hard.
of 2025.
And this is kind of our sword and sorcery / sword and sandal issue for the year. We
Mm-hmm.
got this great fantasy take on ancient Rome by Jim Brayfogle. It's a gladiator adventure with a lot of intrigue and romance and politicking. It's really
Right
cool
on.
cover story. We've also got a really cool sword and sandal story from David Skinner. Uh, are you familiar with that story about the ancient rock like in Greece that they found that's like got the name of the guy? It says so and so held this rock over his head.
Oh, vaguely.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
yeah.
like a feat
Imagine
of
sort of
strength
yeah.
recorded for the ages.
Yeah, so imagine sort of a sword and sandal fantasy story that sort of explains that premise, like what happened in a situation like that, where like you have the guy who's like, "All right, I need you to be my witness while I do this, and because you're a man of letters, you'll be able to help me
Yeah,
chisel my name and
you're
the
literate. Write
on
my
the
name in this.
rock."
First, hold my beer, then write my tale.
Yeah, exactly. And David's been another one of the writers who's been with us for a long time now. His stuff is really good. Um,
Right on,
Let
man.
me try to pull up the link here and see what else is in the issue so I can go over things. Ken Lizzie has a story about a Germanic auxilia from around the late Roman Empire that he's kind of started a new series in. Badulf the German. And so this is one of the first of those stories that we're running in this issue. Our next big project actually is a collection of Ken Cesar the Bravo stories, which will be launching on Kickstarter in about a month. This issue also has a new Melkart adventure, and I mean, if you've been following us for a while, Mark Mellon has had several Melkar adventures in our magazine, as well as in our Mighty Sons of Hercules anthology.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, I didn't get the
And
Mighty Sons of Hercules. I got the Dream Lords. The
dude,
one
you
that
got to
you
get the
wrote.
Mighty Sons of Hercules.
Yeah,
That
rock
collection's
on.
great. I love it. Like, did you ever watch any of those movies as a kid?
Oh yeah, yeah. What was that guy's name? Was it Steve Reeves? Was the bodybuilder that played
Yeah,
Hercules?
Steve Reeves played Hercules, but like
Yeah.
the Mighty Sons of Hercules was like this weird syndicated TV package where they
Oh,
redubbed all of these Italian sword and sandal movies to where like the character would introduce themselves as I am so and so, son of Hercules. And like they had like this little country western theme song that they had at the beginning and end of each movie
they
and
just
stuff.
they just took a bunch of other muscle movies, but they just put the veneer of I am also a son of Hercules.
Exactly,
It's like
exactly. And
Power
so like
Rangers before it was a thing.
yeah, yeah. But like I loved those movies as a kid and like I was kind of rediscovering Peplum a while back and that was a big thing that inspired doing the Sons of Hercules collection.
Right
And
on,
we are
man.
actually in the process now of reading a few of the stories and editing a few of the stories for volume 2. So that's another one of the big things that we have on the horizon, but that's probably going to be next year.
Yeah. Well, so while we're talking about this, there's, I mean, if our our astute watchers will pick up on some themes in the kind of stuff that you publish, and so I'm just gonna share my screen real quick, and if y'all if you type a if you type a search into, why isn't this grab it? Sorry, I can't even finish my thought, can I? If you type a search into YouTube and you search for men's publishing or men's fiction, you're gonna see a bunch of videos. Oh, look, hey, we're on there. Cool. Um, you're gonna see a bunch of videos why men don't read. It's okay to be a man. Masculinity and fantasy publishing. Uh, this is a hot topic right now, and not too long ago, um, there was a dude who he went to Target and he just did a quick little video showing all of the books that were on sale at Target, and he pointed out that these are the mainstream publishers are not targeting men. Like even if you've got fantasy, it's really
Yeah.
romanticy and things like that.
And and one of the things that was pointed out to that guy, I mean, like John's a good guy, and I'm not trying to counter signal him or anything,
Okay.
but one of the things is he took that video at Target. I worked at
Yeah.
Target. If you work at Target, one of the things they tell you in their orientation is that the average Target shopper is a 30-year-old middle-class white woman.
Yeah.
So, of course, their book selection is going to be geared towards their average customer because they are not a bookstore. They are a groceries and home goods store with a tiny book section where,
Yeah.
like, when a lady is grabbing dinner and a new waste basket, she might pick up like another romance novel on the way out.
Yeah. Well, I mean, no,
So
yeah, I was thinking that too. Target is not like it's not the
yeah,
place
and
to
like,
go
I
to
mean,
find.
if you go to Walmart, there's still going to be a lot of romantasy and women's fiction at the Walmart one, but they're still more men's thrillers
Okay.
and stuff. I mean, you get like the Robert Pattinson and the even who's the guy who wrote like the Sun Eater saga? Like they had a couple of his books there.
I'm thinking of Kuntz, Dean Kuntz.
Yeah, they
Charles.
had a bunch of Dean Koontz
Yeah.
stuff. Like
Like the big blockbusters that have always been huge since the
yeah,
80s,
I
right?
mean,
Stephen
you can
King.
still buy like they had several different Michael Crichton books, even though he's
Yeah.
been dead for over a
Michael
decade
Crichton.
now or what.
Yeah.
So I mean, it a lot of it
John
is
Grisham.
yeah, they had Grisham. A lot of it just sort of boils down to these are not booksellers at those places, so they're going to have a very very narrow selection anyway. And if you go to Barnes and Noble, yeah, if you look at the front kiosks and stuff that they're pushing hard, yeah, a lot of it is being pushed towards women,
Hmm.
and but they still have other stuff. But one of the reasons why it's pushed towards women is because women tend to be more likely than men to buy new books from retailers.
Okay.
Here's one of the things that kind of creates this system and this feedback loop is that men love men love to read. There's the meme that men don't like to read. Men
Yeah.
love to read, but they also love to read old things and classics, history books, adventure fiction. They love a lot of everything,
Mm.
but it's easy to find those in thrift stores, at flea markets, and
Yeah.
Goodwills, and publishers have no way to capture any of that data. So, I mean, take me for example. Like I've got books like floor to ceiling. I'm trying to buy less books, but I buy
Yeah.
dozens and dozens of books in a year. But almost none of those book sales, none of that data is captured anywhere by publishers. So as far
Yeah.
as they're concerned, I don't exist. Those sales don't exist. So they're not going to cater to me in what they're publishing now.
Hmm. That makes sense. Well, because some of the reaction is like you're saying. Some people say, "Well, men don't read," and then
It's like,
the
no,
knee
men
jerk,
don't read the stuff that's being published right now, brand new on
yeah.
retail shelves.
And then people say, "Well, the reason men don't read is because nothing is being marketed to them." And I'm like, I don't know if that's true. That feels like a keyboard warrior take. That feels like something where
I
someone
mean,
that doesn't
things
know is
aren't
just.
necessarily being marketed to them in the mainstream places that people like to point to.
Because you've been doing it, man, right?
Yeah, I
So
mean, we are so far outside of the mainstream. We are out of the public eye as far as like books on shelves are concerned. But I mean, we're
yeah,
on Amazon, which is the largest book retailer in the world. So
that's right.
I mean, we are on shelves insofar as digital shelf space is one of the main places where people, including especially men, tend to buy
Mm,
books these days. Most men, I think, who are buying new fiction and new nonfiction and new books are buying online either through Amazon or direct through various publisher sites.
yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, I've bought. Well, I've got the Kickstarter from you, but I've gone to direct websites to get stuff by like Sky Hernstrom and Shag Duck from Pilum Press, and is it Pilum or Pilum?
Pilum, I think.
Pilum. Okay, yeah. You find this stuff. You find the guys that like the stuff you're into, and you find what they're reading, and then you go to the source to get it. Right? At least that's how it's been for me. Um, how has it changed for you though? Like, are you seeing more headwinds now than you had when you started? Is it about the same? Like, what is it? What is it like trying to carve out a space in this?
It's kind of weird because we've had ups and downs over the years, and we were on a long upward trend for a while, and things have
Hmm.
kind of slumped down a little bit in the last year or so. Um, we've regularly had probably between 100 and 200 regular readers of all of our stuff. Uh, and I'm sure that there's sort of a diffuse spread, but as far as like any given title that we put out, we tend to sell between 100 and 200 copies. So I'm guessing that there's probably between 200 and 300 people actually reading our stuff, if not a
Yeah,
little bit more.
yeah. Well, and then there's that kind of, I don't know, like the collector ethos and just the group identity of being in on something that maybe not everybody's aware of. Uh,
Yeah.
do you? Hey, there's not John Dakers in the chat. Hey, bro, we were just talking about you. Um, Bradford Walker says feminists from wealthy and rich families took over the big houses in New York City by 1980, and now they're in senior management. And he follows it up with, "I'm seeing that this problem is either weak or absent if you're looking at other languages." Um, yeah, what's your take on that? Do you think that it was just that other interests took over took over the gates? Because it has not.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of saw that and starting to happen in the late 70s and 80s for sure. Like, I want to, someone can correct me in the chat if I'm wrong, but I think it was Daw that the publisher's daughter ended up taking over it or something and kind of ran it into the ground, and just the taste matches weren't there, and you did kind of see this shift overall.
It seems to
But
me that the people that did well in the mainstream publishing are taken with a certain idea. Uh, the idea of oppressor versus oppressed, and that it is a good thing to center the oppressed at the expense of the oppressor. And I don't know, maybe I'm reading too much into it, but it does feel like the values that it feels like we were unfettered before, where we could just pursue what's the most exciting, interesting, fascinating story I can tell. what's the most outlandish thing I can blow people's hair back? And it slowly morphed into we need to be making things that people should want, whether that's what they want or not.
Yeah, and I think it was probably a long, slow process. It definitely didn't happen overnight. 'Cause I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I remember when I was a kid in the '90s, like one of the biggest authors that even kids were into was, of course, Michael Crichton, because
Mm-hmm.
Jurassic Park blew up. So
Yeah.
like we all read Jurassic Park, and then we were getting all of the other Michael Crichton books. Like,
Yeah. Prey and the time travel one.
I was too young and naive to have managed to make anything of it. But I think in eighth grade, a girl I was friends with borrowed my copy of Andromeda Strain.
Okay. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's not like there wasn't stuff out there. It's just that I think, especially with the rise of the internet, is where you really kind of see things breaking away. Because I mean, there were tons of '90s thriller books that were huge, and even into the aughts.
Oh yeah. Did you ever read John Stakely?
I never did.
Oh, he wrote two books. He wrote one called Armor, which was kind of a riff on Starship
Oh
Troopers,
yeah, 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 yeah,
and
yeah.
he
I,
wrote another one called Vampires with the S as a dollar sign. And dude just wrote two books, and he stayed on the shelves forever with just those two books. I don't know if he ever wrote
yeah,
anything
I've
again.
I've heard a lot about Armor. I know a lot of the guys in our scene are really are really into that one.
Yeah, so there's good stuff that was coming out then. I don't know, and I haven't been reading the new stuff. I don't go to Barnes and Noble and buy the new stuff. It's true. Um, I am one of those ones because of the influences of one Mr. Jeffro Johnson in his book Appendix N. I have been trying to fill holes in my history by reading those books that I hadn't. Um, and I wonder if that, you mentioned that men like to read old stuff. Like, do you think that has made it harder to let them know, hey, there's new stuff being written that's of the same quality, of the same excitement, and that speaks to the male ethos?
Yeah,
It's not all over. The party's not over. There's some good guys out there throwing out some killer stuff. How do
yeah,
you get
I
that
know,
message
and,
out?
and that's one of the reasons why a bunch of people were always all butthurt about Jeff Rose don't read anything after 1980 meme. He's
Yeah.
like, are you telling people to not read the books that I have written about my very special, noble, savage orcs
You're right
or
on.
whatever?
My orcs are different. We got a super chat. Planet Tobor TV $5 just says good. I hope that means that you're enjoying the show, bro. Thanks for the $5 and thanks for watching. Always happy to see you in the chat. Um, so, but I mean, if the audience is someone who's comfortable reading some older stuff that may have some more stilted language or whatever, like, do you worry about that, or are you like, no, there's room for both?
There's easily room for both. Like, there, there's no language so stilted or archaic that someone who is literate can't read it. I mean,
Mm.
there. I'm trying to remember when it was, but there was a while ago. Someone was all like, "They need to update and modernize stuff from 100 years ago," and it's like,
Oh yeah,
that's
but you know
crazy.
what they mean by modernize, right?
Yeah, yeah.
We'll
Like,
just
but
cut
it's
out the
too
parts that
hard for
offend us.
people to read. It was a different language. Like, no, you can, like, if you're going back as far as like Chaucer and Middle English, yeah, it's kind of hard to read if you don't have a big vocabulary and a liberal sense of spelling.
Yeah, but if
But,
high schoolers can read Romeo and Juliet, like
yeah, well, and this is a point that I've kind of always been on, is that it's funny that they always go for Shakespeare in high school and middle school, is because he's probably one of the least accessible of the three big Elizabethan English playwrights. Like, Marlowe is really easy to read and really accessible, and Ben Jonson is pretty easy to read and pretty accessible. Shakespeare is a nightmare because whoever, whether it was actually the bard Shakespeare, whatever
Or
aristocrat was writing the plays in the
William
setting of the
DeVere.
Shakespeare,
Yeah.
was a ridiculously literate person with an insane vocabulary and experience. And that stuff is really difficult. Even now, like, I'm not gonna be able to like read a Shakespeare play without having to look stuff up and be like, what's he talking about here? What does this mean?
Yeah.
Like, you don't really have that problem with
The,
Johnson
the
or
only
Marlowe.
time the only time I've ever overdosed on drugs, it was because of Shakespeare.
Yeah.
I was in college. It was I was in a Shakespeare class, and I had, this is my own bad. I was a procrastinator, and it was the night before my paper was due, and I hadn't read the play. And to me, Shakespeare is kind of like one of those magic eye posters, you know, where you stare at it and you go cross-eyed and you try to unfocus your eyes until you can see the sailboat or whatever. And so it took. I took. Okay, so I was reading Shakespeare, and I had a bottle of No-Dose, and the bottle said take one every 4 to 6 hours. And for whatever reason, I thought it said every 2 to 4 hours. So every 2 hours, I was popping another No-Dose, and I was able to focus. I was able to read the whole play. I was able to write the whole paper, and it was like one of those things where it's like, oh, I can finally go to bed. And I looked out, and the sun was coming up, and I was like, oh crap. And then the first class I had was circuit fitness, and I go in there, and we started by running laps in the gym, and I'm like keeping up with the fastest kids in the class. I'm like, what is going on? And then I got on the exercise machine, and I was like doing my max weight, and I was just like boom, 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 you know. I'm like, what is going on? This is amazing. And so
From
I think
Shakespeare.
yeah, it was the butterfly, and then I was doing like the vertical bench, and I got like two reps in, and I got halfway through the third, and like my head started going off to the side, and my whole face went tingly and numb, and my lips and tongue got all thick. I could barely talk, and I realized it wasn't strength, it was just energy, and I had just burned through the last of it. And so I got to class and turned that paper in, and so I got my paper turned in, but yeah, it's because that was so I OD'd. I got excused from class. I went home and just collapsed into my bed and just stared at the ceiling, because even though I was exhausted and desperate for sleep, I couldn't, because I was so jiffed up on the No-Dose. So thanks for that, William Shakespeare. Anyway, Night Danger in the chat says, I'll admit, I think a lot of there's no men's fiction is code for there's no men's SFF. Because most men who get new books at these stores get spy crime thrillers like Lee Child's Reacher novels. What do you think about that?
I mean, SFF has been so thoroughly compromised by just like weirdo lunatics that, yeah, everything that's not branded fiction on the shelves is probably going to be garbage.
Yeah. And I feel like a lot of the big stars in SFNF turn out to be perverts and weirdos, right? Like,
Yeah.
I just remember, because, okay, for a while I wanted to write science fiction and fantasy. Turns out I'm not that great at it. But I thought one of the things you need to do, the rules back then were you don't want to repeat something that's already been done. So I was trying to collect all of the Hugo and Nebula Award winners and
Oh,
read
man,
those.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was on the wrong track. But
Like, you have to go back to like the early 70s, I think, before you get to where like the Hugos don't suck.
yeah, Samuel R. Delaney and just the people that they were recommending, Marion Zimmer Bradley, and like people that have like since had podcasts written about how awful they are and how they ruined the lives of children and people around them, and even Neil Gaiman with the I remember reading the intro that he did to Elric of Melniboné and just being like, this is disgusting. What is going on with this guy? And then sure enough, all this stuff starts coming out. Call me master. And I'm like, how many times did I, as a kid, a Christian kid, read science fiction and feel like my faith was either being mocked or casually discarded, and have to like stomach through it to keep trying to read and enjoy the book, you know? And then it comes out, it's like, you know what? We are always giving them the benefit of the doubt. Like, oh, well, just because they wrote it doesn't mean that that's how they are, what they meant. But like so many times they put weird stuff in the book and then weird stuff comes out about them. And it's like, I like science fiction. I like fantasy. I like a genuine sense of wonder. Why have I been kind of corralled towards this weird fringe ethos. I don't know. That's one of the reasons I like the old stuff, because like if you read Poul Anderson, Christianity is not just like so gross you don't include it or you only mock it if it's there, but it's like it's part of the what's going on in the world, you know?
The funny thing is though is I made the mistake of going back too far and reading the Powell Anderson stuff that was too early, because
Oh yeah.
apparently yeah, like apparently his stuff in the late 40s early 50s is like really disgusting CIA spook apologia. It's like
Oh
really
man.
like I hated the late 40s early 50s Powell Anderson stuff I read, and I'm like, I need to stop reading this if I'm ever going to actually like read his important stuff.
Yeah, you got to skip to the good period, right? Okay. Well, so that's part of it too then. Maybe like the writers go through their own journey and that kind of thing. They mature and they is there anybody that you're just like, I trust this, if I pick this author up, I know I'm in for a good time.
Yeah, everything I've read by Vance is good. Everything I've
Yeah.
read by Lee Brackett is good. Everything I've read by Ross Rocklin is good. Uh, Everything I've read by Raymond F. Jones is good. Even like when he's doing like Campbellian stuff, like the thing that's crazy to me about Raymond F. Jones is like he'll sell a story that's basically the Infinity Wars to Planet Stories, and like the same year he like sells some weird quality assurance story to Campbell and Astounding.
Yeah. So, yeah, some of those guys were so prolific.
Uh-huh.
Um and so the newer crop, you mentioned Brayfogle. Who else would you say is like, if you see this person's name, you know that this is gonna rock?
For newer stuff, it's hard because I'm so focused on my own authors that I don't
Hmm.
have a
That's
chance
true.
to read near enough stuff outside my own stable. But Robert Zoltan, if you like Fafford and the Grey Mouser, his Rogues of Mirth series is really good. Um, I mean, Misha Burnett, of course, who we publish, his
Hmm.
stuff is amazing. If you like weird fiction in the classic sense of like not necessarily period stuff, but contemporary weird strange tales.
Hmm.
Like he's really good at that. Um, and we just published a collection of his urban fiction, which is being shipped out to Kickstarter backers and this week and next.
Oh, rock on,
It
man.
will be available on Amazon. I want to say in July 15th is when we have the retail release date for Dracoheim Confidential.
Okay. So if people didn't get in on that stuff, if they want hard copy, like do you have old hard copies, or do you pretty much sell out and you're like, okay, we're digital from here because
Now you get it in print on Amazon.
okay.
Yeah, all of our stuff is available in print.
Yeah. Commodore Sven, aka Ben, says Atheon Books publishes a metric crap ton of mill sci-fi every month. And also, as I told Dunder last week, I'm writing the definitive dude book. Rock on. Um, you're you have kind of a narrow window for when you accept submissions, yeah, for
Yeah, we're
Cirsova.
actually not doing open submissions this year. Only working with past contributors going
Okay.
into 2026. Usually we would keep our submission window open for the first week in August, and I'd
Yeah.
get like 250 stories and have to write 200 rejection
Oh
letters,
man.
and I'm
Yeah.
like, I don't have time or energy for that. I've got too many other projects. I'm gonna just work with the blue chips, the past contributors, and best of the best. And it
Right on.
sucks because even out of them, if all of them submit, I'll have to end up rejecting somebody because we've worked with probably over 100 authors over the years.
Right on. So
And
when it
I,
comes to those rejections, as an editor, do you find that, I mean, well, obviously there's like the bottom of the there's the bottom of the list where they're still developing as a writer, or they just don't get it or whatever. But like for the ones that are the hard choices, do you find that you're mainly trying to pick the best stories that you get, or is it more like you get a lot of good ones and you're trying to pick the ones that most match your vision as an editor for what the magazine should be?
Yeah, I definitely try to maintain the editorial vision, but when it gets down to the final cuts, things usually that get weighed are, all things being equal, is this person a past contributor? How long
Hmm.
is it? Like, if I buy a 10,000 word story, that means there are two 5,000 word stories I can't buy. And so
Yeah.
I have to kind of weigh that in the decision making process too. And, sometimes some of the story picks come from when a theme presents itself out of the
Hmm.
slush pile and the past contributors. I mean, we never really go into things thinking like, all right, we're going to do a theme issue based on this, and I'm going to pick out all the stories of this type. Instead, what tends to happen is I see that we get a bunch of good stories of one type, and I'm like, it would make thematic sense to
Yeah.
group these stories together in an issue, and then stories of another type, if it makes thematic sense, group it together in another issue, which is, like I said, how we kind of end up with this sword and sorcery, or then sword and sandal issue that
Hmm.
we've got coming up. We just happen to get a bunch of really good sword and sandal, sword and sorcery stories that work together thematically, and so I'm like, I'll stick them in the summer.
Right
And
on.
we do have one nautical adventure story in this issue that did not fit, for space reasons, with the issue that's coming up later this year that's mostly nautical adventures.
Hmm.
So,
Is there ever anything that you're like, man, we just don't ever get enough of this kind of story? Is there everything where you're just like, man, I really wish that this was a bigger?
um, it's hard to say, because I think at this point we've finally gotten to where I see enough of a mix of all the different things I like. One of the things that
Mhm.
I did want to see more of for a while was gothic fiction and gothic horror.
Okay.
We ended up getting some really good gothic stuff over the years, and some good weird horror that's it's been really neat to be able to publish that. And and that's one of the reasons why we did the rebrand in 2019, is because back when we were a magazine of science, heroic fantasy and science fiction, like
Yeah.
almost all the stories we got were sci-fi and barbarians with swords, and I'm like,
Hmm.
I want more than just barbarians with swords. And honestly, the average barbarian with sword story is not that great. We published some really good ones, but the average one we
Yeah.
got was not that great. And we also wanted to cut back on elf stories and people who are all like, here's my dual wielding bisexual elf ranger lady.
One
And
of
I'm
her
like,
eyes is
no,
purple and the other is
no,
pink.
no more of those stories. I think that guy finally gave up. I'm glad that guy finally gave up.
And
Um,
not John Digger says, down with the elves. The knife-eared jerks. Dornell's here. He says, okay, I'm here. Did I miss the Trilopula stuff? No, Dornell, we haven't talked about it yet. But it's coming. We are going to get there. Anything else you want to say on what people just don't understand about the whole men don't read / nobody writes for men kind of meme that's going around now?
I mean, like I said, I think it boils down to the fact that men read, but they read in ways that isn't captured by the industry. And God, what is that meme that's like, any man who reads serious nonfiction is in some serious hoe scaring ideologies or something. So so yeah, I mean, like, everybody's all chomping at the bit right now for that new English translation of Campus Saints.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so So yeah, there are plenty of men out there wanting to purchase fiction.
Right on. Bradford has an idea. Dead core purge the heretic SFF to protect an orphanage from a mad cult. A knight must draw his sword. Dead core. I like that. Okay, well, since Dornell brought it up, I'm enjoying this conversation, by the way, because I don't know. I don't know. Like I said, you see a lot of YouTube videos on the topic, but I don't know if everyone's got the same insight into it as what you've been seeing. But let's get to the Trilopula stuff, and maybe this is a good segue. Did you know Jeffro from fiction stuff, from Appendix N stuff, or did you start with him with the D&D stuff?
D&D blog days. We were both part of the RPG Blog Alliance,
Okay.
which goes back to like, I mean, my website I think goes back to like 2011 or 2012.
Okay. Wow.
But yeah, he was one of the blogs that I followed, and like we interacted some through the blogs, but we just followed each other's stuff. And by the time Jeffro was getting acknowledged for some of his work, when he got his first Hugo nod with the sad puppies, he was working on the Appendix N stuff, and I was finding um, a bunch of pulp stuff because I was like, all right, now I know where to look.
Mm-hmm.
And I was at the time I was still applying that to gaming stuff, and the Cirsova blog was still mostly gaming focused, but
Why
eventually
Cirsova? What does that name mean to you?
um it is an artifact of when the blog was a D&D setting blog. Like, it started out as a D&D setting blog
Okay.
and morphed more towards systems analysis and just OSR stuff.
Okay.
And
Did I ever tell
the
you
name
how
just
I
sort of
became
got kept as,
Dundermoose?
the name just got kept as sort of an artifact of the blog,
Yeah.
because it was one of those names like Kodak. It doesn't mean anything in any language, and nobody else had used it, so I just kept it. And so it's a unique thing. Like, if you look up Cirsova, all you find is us.
Right on. I love it. Uh, my name is an artifact from the Xbox. Was it the Xbox 360? When did Halo 2 first go online? Well, that was the first Xbox, right?
Yeah, that was 360. Halo 2
Okay.
was
Yeah.
360, I would
I
say.
I I thought I was pretty good at the game because I'd only just played a bunch of people my age at LAN parties. And then when I started playing online, I was getting like just absolutely just destroyed by kids whose voices hadn't even dropped yet. And so I was like, all right, people need to know about me. And so I thought Dunderhead because I make poor decisions, and Moose because I'm kind of clumsy on the stick. So that's where Dunder Moose came from. So I get it. Where yours was way better. Cirsova is more memorable and has a better ring to it. But yeah, it's amazing how our early gaming kind of follows us around in these things. All right, so you and Jeffro are reading each other's blogs. You're aware of him from the Sad Puppies thing with the Hugos, and how long had you been? Were you already a publisher at this point, or were you just
No,
kind of going down that
it
path?
was 2015 that I decided to take the jump, because I've been reading all these great stories in Planet Stories magazine, because I
Mm-hmm.
around the time Jeffro had been talking about all these authors, I found a flea market cache of all these old sci-fi pulps.
Oh, nice.
And so I grabbed those and was like, wow, I wonder if anybody's writing stories like this today. And if they are, do they have anywhere to publish them? So I ended up taking the plunge, and in late 2015 put out a call for submissions, and we put out our first issue in spring of 2016.
Wow. What a year that was too, huh? 2016. That was Trump's first year of his first term, right?
No, that was the election year. His first year of his
Oh, that's
first
right.
term didn't start till 2017.
Okay, so that was
That
when
was
everything
that
was
was
up in
when
the air. That was when nobody thought he could win.
2016 was the rise of the alt right.
Oh yeah.
The apotheosis of Gamergate.
Oh yeah, Dornell
Yeah,
says
Dormer on the
everything
chat was
goes
saying
back
everything
to
goes back to
GG.
GG.
That's right. That's
Doesn't it
right.
though?
So did you have like family or friends? Did you have an example of publishing before, where you just like, this is entirely new, but I'm taking the plunge?
Um, I'd had a little bit of experience before. I was the editor for my college's literary zine my senior year, and
Okay.
as we talked about the origins of Cirsova a minute ago, there is actually one Cirsova book that takes place in the Cirsova setting. I wrote a choose your own adventure book that was sort of a proof of concept to just kind of get me familiar with the process of POD publishing.
Yeah. Did they come after you? The
Well,
choose
I
your own
mean,
the
I
choose your own
didn't
adventure
call it
people
choose
are
your own
pretty.
adventure.
Yeah. I had a friend who she just used that title in a presentation she gave at a college conference. And she just used it for her presentation, and she let the audience pick which set of slides they went through next. It was really awesome. But she
Yeah.
got a cease and desist letter for him just for her one presentation that she had a PowerPoint slide
Yeah,
on. I
we,
was like,
we called we
holy
called
crap.
ours a branching path adventure.
There you go. Determine thy fate.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway,
And
so
so,
okay.
once I figured out how to do that and the layout, I mean,
And
it,
so
it
was it
wasn't.
just a one person shop at the beginning, or did you have help from the get go?
It was a one person shop, and in a lot of ways, it still is. I mean, I do all the layout, I do the cover layouts,
Mm-hmm.
everything. We have an editing team that does it freelance.
Okay.
Yakov Merkin, who a lot of you guys probably know, and Justin Tarkin, aka Mark Thompson. They are our current editorial team. They do the copy edits after I do my first and second round edits.
Okay. Cool.
And we have a stable of artists that we have been working with over the years. Right now, Wistmore Studios has kind of become our new primary cover artist. Uh, our main cover artist for a long time was Anton Oxenuk, and his stuff is fantastic, and he's still doing stuff for us. But he's got a lot going on, so we didn't want to keep him on the grind of doing quarterly covers.
Mm-hmm.
So we just kind of save him for some of the big projects. Like he's working on a cover for the Wild Stars Omnibus Volume 2 that's going to be coming out later this year.
Oh, nice. All right. So back to gaming then. So you and Jeffro were following each other, and you'd been reading about this experiment in Trilopulus, right? Like, were you also on Twitter at the time? Did you see the whole Mephrodis bullying him thing? Like,
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I was around for all of that.
but you didn't actually play in Trilopulus until he switched everything on, right?
Yeah, he put a pause on the game and said, "All right." He'd seen Secrets of Blackmore. He'd
Mm-hmm.
been reading the Blackmore supplement for the little white books,
Yeah.
and he was like, "What do these factions mean? What is that like? What happens if you just say, 'All right, here's a person in this hex, and this is what his troops are'? And what if you say, 'All right, have at it, give all those people, all those troops, have at it'?" So it was kind of an extension of the patron experiment,
See,
but
that's what I
also
love about the bros, is that ethos of, we're trying to discover or rediscover something, and we will, like, even because it felt like, from reading the blog from the outside, that campaign was very valuable already, and everyone was really enjoying it. And to like put it on pause and to throw something new in there, like, that's such a huge risk, I think.
yeah, and
But
it was wild because it was uncharted territory as far as gaming goes, because we'd been exploring a lot of downtime theory and like what could be done in downtime.
Mm-hmm.
And the United Caveman Federation was like way out in the middle of nowhere, and like there was really no reason for anybody to go there. There wasn't any good treasure. It was out of the way. It was far away from the city. You would probably die on the way there because you had to travel through so many
Yeah, Overland is
vortexes.
so much more dangerous even than like dungeons, the first 2 levels.
But like I was basically just making all of these grug shit posts and stuff that were so funny, and everyone's like, "We have to go to the United
Yeah.
Caveman Federation and check it out."
Was that
And
like one of the early examples of memeing something into importance?
yeah,
Introlepula.
yes, absolutely. And we also had our first downtime death. Uh,
Oh, okay.
someone came to visit the United Caveman Federation to proselytize, and they just completely failed at converting the caveman, and he just got torn apart by bears, and we had our first death in downtime. And that was kind of a shocking revelation that a PC could die during a downtime action.
Okay, so tell me, how did that happen and how did it get communicated, especially to the player?
Well, the part of the patron theory was that patron players could act as sort of co-DMs to take
Mm-hmm.
some of the responsibility of creating and running the world for the DM.
Okay.
And so
So who was the PC, and if you remember who was playing them?
it was Bob Dobbs.
That's the name of the PC.
Yeah. Uh, yeah, it was Kess.
Yeah, here he is.
Here he is in chat.
Who would
Bob
go on to
Dobbs,
run
torn
Brovenloft,
apart by
by the way?
bears.
It was me. I was the PC torn apart by bears. Okay, so let us have it too in the chat. So I'm only getting P. Alexander's side of this. So keep us honest, Cast. So you're running it as the patron of the region, right? His guy
Yeah,
comes up.
and so and the thing is even though I had a patron character, my patron wasn't in the hex, but I was running the faction sub
Okay.
bosses. So I was
Yeah,
basically
because you get sub chiefs and stuff, right? As part of your.
so I was playing as like the level 6 sub chief of Cave 6 or whatever. and then just like
Middle
all right,
management
I'll
caveman number
DM
7.
yeah, it's like I'll DM this downtime session thing, and for whatever reason, the downtime session just kind of went off the rails.
Was anybody else? It was just you, like solo playing it, or
Yeah, pretty much. And
just throwing the dice?
After that, Brian Renninger came with his Fluid the Druid character and actually made a fairly profitable alliance. And he happened to be there at the time when Elric showed up at the wrong place at the wrong time.
Yeah, Elric went to the wrong cave, right?
Yeah, he came to the wrong cave because like I'd made some deal with the guy who was playing Elric for like a big shipment of iron, and like he shows up at the wrong cave with troops and stuff, like all out in array. And so I'm like, I don't know, have I been betrayed? Have we been betrayed? The cavemen don't know what's going on, so they form up lines with their bears and their dinosaurs, and Fluid the Druid is there, and just somehow we managed to actually kill Elric of Melniboné and take Stormbringer and take his spell book. His spell book gets burned.
Oh man, who was playing Elric?
I don't even remember who was playing Elric.
I don't think he stuck around after that. I think that might have been it for him. He was like, I'm done with this. Because I've talked to Fluid about that. Fluid was hiding in the bushes. And I guess Elric set down Stormbringer to try and show the cavemen that he was not a threat, right? Like he set the sword on the ground.
Yeah, and he hit him with a call lightning, which is not
because it was
lightning, so it bypassed his magic resistance.
Because it was raining at Jeffro's house, and Jeffro was just like, whatever the weather is at my house is what's happening in the world. And then he hit him with a swarm of insects or something, so he couldn't use magic, and then your guys rushed up and just clubbed him to death. Yeah,
pretty much.
He made off with the sword. All right, well,
we ended up with several tons of iron that we weren't able to do anything with because we were grugs and we don't know how to keep iron from rusting.
You weren't ready for the Iron Age. Um, so Cass says, I told Jeffro I wanted Bob Dobbs to go spread the word of Slack to the cavemen. Jeffro rolled wilderness encounters, and I got there safely and threw things over to Cirsova to handle it. And so my cleric fighter tried to proselytize and failed to convince the cavemen of his superior religion. And they decided a test of faith was needed. Hence the bears. So did you just do like a reaction roll for your guys and it just came up bad? Is that how you adjudicated that, or do you even remember?
We mostly just role played it.
Oh, okay. So the bears showed up and that was that. He got torn to pieces. But he didn't get mad and quit the game though, right? Like he stuck around.
Yeah, that was another thing, was that, it was fun. I think it was fun for both of us, and it opened up new possibilities for what could be done in the game.
Yeah. So what did you learn about D&D when you started playing in these crazy Trilopulus sessions? Like how did it change the way you approach the game?
It definitely became more Bronstein focused, to where what was interesting, what was happening on the grander scheme of things, not like what was going on in the dungeons, or like what scut work could be accomplished by killing rats in basements and getting copper, and
Yeah.
the big grand sweeping campaigns were the new horizon.
It's hard to go back to the mud core once you've got that
Yeah,
vista, right?
yeah, even though we probably all took it a little too far with Brovenloft.
Macho Mandolf is weighing in. He said, I understood the patron job to be like Ferrigno and Dubs Our Own, slowly building my influence and messing with PCs. I thought Macho Mandolf was supposed to be the same thing in Trilopulus, but I was so wrong. Cass says, my dude was level 2 or 3. No possible way to survive a fight. I thought it was the funniest thing. And that's what's interesting to me.
I mean, Kessa's guy probably shouldn't have even been able to make it to the wilderness.
He shouldn't have even shown up at the cave people. But that's
Yeah, I mean,
me, though.
it's like he was using like Paleolithic encounter tables for the jungle. So like there was a pretty good chance that like you just like get eaten by a dinosaur on the way there. Like I think
like the start of Red Nails, where you just run up a hill where there's a brontosaurus down there or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Flat.
There were leveled characters who just disappeared during travel in our area.
I think that might be one of the unspoken tests of are you truly a bro in your bones, is if something happens, something stupid and crazy happens and your character dies, do you rage quit or do you laugh about it?
I mean,
and it's a filter, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, Gangster Rapper got zapped in the first round of combat for 300 points of lightning damage. And God, he was like a level 16 mummy cleric.
Yeah. And like one player will look at that and be like, oh, great. What was I supposed to do? I lost my character. And another player will look at that and go, man, I wonder what that sounded like when a mummy got hit with that much light. Where all the rappers flapping,
And somehow we still managed to fight the battle to a stalemate and destroy the castle.
Macho says, I was checking my phone at 3 a.m. in the morning for New Trilopulus News Network. Always on for a month was wild. Yeah. Well, I'm starting to feel that. I'm in Moonstein. We're on turn 6 where B-Dubs has brought back Jeffro's Traveler game. And because I do this show, I get pulled into a lot of stuff. And I'm learning to say no so that I don't get people's hopes up and then have to pull out. Like recently Serious DM said, hey, would you like to play in my game? And like my gut instinct was, oh man, that's going to be a blast. I'd love to play with that guy. And then I was like, okay, let's think about the last year and how many times did you have to sheepishly put your hand back down after you bit off more than you could chew. So if you don't just pick one and go for it, There's
Yeah,
going to be one that takes over, and it doesn't just take over your gaming, but like I'll be at work and I'll be thinking about this game that I'm in, and I'll be like in the shower and thinking, oh, here's what I got to do, and I'm drying off real quick so I can quick type in my orders and stuff. And there's just something about that always on, that grand vista
yeah.
that can eclipse I mean, it's almost like, you hear about people playing World of Warcraft to the point where they're neglecting their pets and stuff. Like,
Oh God, yeah.
there's something human about it that does fascinate you. 3 a.m. phone checks from Macho to see what was going on at Trilopoulos News Network.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm probably one of the worst bros to actually talk about it with because I don't have any time for table gaming.
Yeah.
I've only really had a chance to play in those two Bronsteins because they were play by post
Mm-hmm.
and done in DMs and like and Brovenloft took so much out of me.
I think, bro. Yeah, I just wish I had connected just a little bit earlier so I could have experienced Brovenloft, because it just seems like,
Yeah, the battle that we played was it was a mistake, but we wanted to prove Alexander Macris wrong because he'd said like AD&D couldn't be used for encounters like over a certain size. And
okay.
he's like, yeah, even Alexander's battles with like 40,000 troops. AD&D can't really handle that, and so we're like, well, we'll have a battle with like 100,000 troops on all sides.
We're
And oh
gonna
my
do
god,
the
if you
cover
play,
of a Warhammer 40K box.
yeah, it's like we got to the point where we were doing like 1 to 40 scaling,
Oh
and just like
man.
like and because it was play by post, like it's all theater of the mind, and
Oh
I'm
man.
just like, just tell me your troop dispositions. What are the troop dispositions? I have shown you my troop dispositions. I have shown you my troop makeup.
Yeah, I have
What
a
is
copy
happening?
of the Kanksta's the Rhymes of the Kankster, or whatever, the book that got
Oh yeah,
created.
Relic of the Gangster.
Relic of the Kankster, and the last page actually shows his forces and how he deploys them, like who's in the front ranks and where his clerics go and that kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
that's what we used for that battle, and man,
Like, I just feel like there was so many wives and children that were deprived of the men in their life during Provenloft, because everyone was obsessed with what was happening. And the things that I heard about were so hilarious, man. I had Cass on my show and we talked about it. Like, when the elves came in riding on their griffins or whatever, and they cast sleep on him. It's like, haha, we're elves. Sleep doesn't work. It's like, it works on your mounts. And you just see all these sleeping griffins and elves just falling out of the sky. Oh my
and like
god.
one guy like playing a 300 hit dice monster, like doing AOE effects on like 40-foot areas of my troops. It's like, yeah, okay, your 300 hit dice monster kills another 60 level 1 clerics of my army of 80,000.
Just the Godzilla stomp. Oh, that's so over the top. He says, Kess says, the Battle of Cecilvania was both the greatest and worst moment of Proven Left. Bradford says, this is the only hobby where you get to the chance to act like a historical hero like Alexander or Caesar and impose one's will on the world. There's nothing else that can provide that. Yeah, so I mean that whole, not just Brovenloft, but the stuff that led up to it, all the stuff with the sword, especially where you guys discovered that with 1-to-1 time, you can have things jump from one campaign to another, from one table to another, and it's all
Yeah, as long as
continuous.
everybody's in sync.
If everybody's using
Yeah, that was
1-to-1 time in
the
the
other
same
thing. Like,
calendar,
was where I think I was the one who's like, what is plane shift but moving a character from one table to another?
was it you that suggested that you send the sword to Dubzeron?
Now, I can't claim credit for that,
Okay.
but that was how we got PCs into Broven Loft. Was we would use plane shift and like
Okay.
abduct people and plane shift them into from various tables.
Well, and just having John Mollison, Mr. Wargaming, play out each night you got a different turn in the battle of trying to get the sword into the sun. Like this to me was such legendary play. Nobody has topped it. There is, well, I mean, the Bros topped it with Broser and with their own Bronsteins and stuff. But like, I feel like there is so many amazing things that have happened that people outside of the BroSR, they don't even have the vocabulary to comprehend how much farther the game got pushed in those years just by following AD&D 1E and trying to do all the rules to their logical conclusions. Everybody that dismissed it said nobody's ever played that way, or we tried it and it didn't work. It's like only the people that are open to it can understand how truly jaw-dropping it was. And I can only imagine what it was like to be there in the midst of it as it was unfolding. We've got another super chat. My ear trumpet has been struck by lightning. Thank you for the $2 Australian. I don't see a comment in there. So just $2 for being supportive. I appreciate it, bro. So, okay. We talked about the stuff you got on the horizon. We talked about the whole men don't read thing. Anything else about early Trilopulus that stood out to you, playing the Cavemen Federation, or how it was when you tried to tell other people about what you guys were doing?
Well, I think part of the thing is that a lot of people were like, "Oh, you guys are just story gaming," but the thing is they only saw what was happening that was public facing, like the shit posts, the Twitter stuff, the rap battles. None, like that was all like the diplomacy game of the Bronstein. Like when there was actual D&D that was taking place, like in the group chats that people didn't see.
Yeah. Well, it got the reputation for being super gonzo and over the top, and like,
yeah.
I think,
but the other thing is like the actual sausage being made was not necessarily as fun or exciting as what people saw.
yeah, it wasn't Critical Role, right? And I think most actual plays are really not that fun to watch.
Yeah, like I kind of don't hope that the Battle of Cecilvania chats ever get leaked, because I kind of lost my temper on a few people there.
Oh, Black Lodge Games says story gaming is the most misapplied slur. I'll just leave that there. No comment. The stories that we're talking about are the things that happened as you look back on it, right? That what do they call it? Emergent story. Nobody
narrative,
nobody sat down with a module and said, all right, now here's the part where they make all the skeletons, they cast continuous light on them so that they can
like
stand on the road as like lampposts. Like that just came out of the mind of one of the players, and it was just
like the whole beef between the Count and Gangster Rapper was entirely just like me and Daniel is like going back and forth, joking,
just memeing and rhyming, and all that stuff. But I'm glad you brought that up. That like it wasn't like you were totally having your hair blown back the entire time while you were playing. While you're playing, probably just felt like D&D, right?
Yeah, and like there are some incredibly ugly and cumbersome spreadsheets of what the dry
that
lands
sounds like
look
McCree.
like. Because I'm not kidding when I said that like Gangster had a faction of like hundreds of thousands of guys.
Yeah, it was huge. Well, it's funny to me that you were trying to outdo McCrease, because we're still going head to head with him. He is on right now opposite us. And thank you guys for the ones that are showing up here to watch our stuff instead of watching his. If you're watching this after the fact and you did fall on Team McCrease, we will not hold that against you. We're still glad you're here. But the real ones are in the chat right now. And Dornell says, we still Haven't had a proper Vampire the Masquerade Brostein. Probably because everyone will show up wanting to play Chad Vampire Hunters named Simon Bromont.
And they'll all be the Captain N version of Simon.
Yeah. Robert Hawkins says, or Laszlo from What We Do in the Shadows. I bet BLG would be down to do a Vampire the Masquerade Bronstein. I'm gonna be having them on soon to talk about their new product that's coming out that's on Kickstarter, Bloodmore, and they got some cool stuff coming along with individual modules and stuff to support that. But I don't want to steal any thunder from that show. My ear trumpet, another $2. I forgot McCrease was on at the same time. Oh crap, we just lost him. He's like, oh yeah, McCrease, I'm out. Thanks for the $2, bro. All right. Well, is there anything that you were hoping would come out of this that I haven't asked you about yet? Because
I think we've covered pretty much everything.
Today. Yeah.
I mean, we've talked about the projects going forward. We've talked about the D&D stuff. Was there anything you wanted to talk about, Browser, Deep Lore, or anything like that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I could keep you going all night with my questions about that stuff. So as much as you want to give me on the Deep Lore, let's talk a little bit about Browser, like what that was like. That came together pretty dang quick, right?
Yeah. Someone challenged Jeffro to a game jam to develop a module and backed out, but he wanted to go ahead with it. And so he and B-Dubs, I think B-Dubs was responsible for most of the Tard wrangling to get everybody's factions written.
Yeah.
But they managed to get all these factions written up in a few weeks, and then they came to me with pretty much a finished product and said, can you help us standardize the formatting for the factions, get it into layout, and would you want to publish it? And I said, yeah, sure, and spent about 5 days to a week working on it, getting everything hammered out. And
there are some amazing essays in Browser. Like, even if you never want to play the Browser that's laid out there.
And it's funny because like I don't even remember what I was doing the giveaway with, but I was doing a giveaway for something for whoever wrote the first after action report for Browser, and everybody was so sure that the Amber Diceless guys were going to win it.
Yeah.
But then some guy ran the United Caveman Federation Micro Bronstein with the 6 caveman tribes at war with each other.
Right on.
They got an after action report and they won it. And so I'm like,
scooped it. It was a Tarzan, right? Was it Jewels of Opar or something like that?
Yeah, I think it was Jewels of Opar.
Right on, man. So yeah, tell me about what it was like to revisit the Caveman Federation for Browser, because you wrote that faction. And
kind of. I kind of wrote it. Somebody else, I can't remember who off the top of my head, it's there in the credits, wanted to do it, and he had introduced this theme of totemic animals for the tribes, and he wanted to do something with that, but something came up and he couldn't finish it, so I ended up kind of fleshing it out. So it's not one for one the Caveman Federation from Trilopolis.
Yeah,
it's funny too because like we would get these requests back in the day, like, hey, you should write a module for the United Caveman Federation so we can add it into our campaign. And I'm like, guys, it's literally just the caveman entry from the monster manual.
Yeah,
like on the website, like I did like this shit post series of like 8 or 9 posts of like the secrets of the United Caveman Federation revealed, and like most of them are just garbage and memes and screenshots from the monster manual.
Do you still have your Grug memes? Are they still up on X? Because I know once they got bought out, like there was like kind of a purge where they like just drew a line in the sand and said everything before we're deleting. Do you still have the Grug memes, or have they been disappeared to the same time?
If you look up the United Caveman Federation hashtag, you should find all of it.
I'm writing it down. And you guys had a rock, right? At least in browser you did it.
Yeah, in browser, I added in a rock because there was one bird themed tribe, and I'm like, let's give them a rock. That could be cool or weird, and it because
Yeah.
I was thinking of the old Popeye the Sailor theatrical short with Sinbad the Sailor,
Yeah.
where Popeye fights the Rock and just like beats it up and turns it into a giant fried turkey.
Um, I did want to. Dornell had another great comment. Dornell said, Cirsova's charm is underrated. Caveman Federation and Kangsta brought eyeballs to what we were doing. Thanks for being a bro. Um, that is a part of it too, right? Like, you were you playing on Discord or were you playing just in DMs on Twitter or how was
Just
the
in DMs.
so DMs and Twitter? You're playing Trilopulus, but at the same time you're doing these public facing memes that are going out to everyone. Uh, how much is a part of it? Because I did a silly little rap a couple of years ago where I talked about a bro SR bro blogs receipts, and how much is of that is the blogging, is the memeing, is like the public face. How much has that always been a part of it, and what has that done for the movement? Would you say?
I mean, I'd say that it's always kind of been a part of it, and that's really what got a lot of people interested in the first place. I think
Yeah.
because one of the things that Jeffra realized was that like the winner of a patron game is whoever can command the PC's attention.
Yes. Whoever the PCs want to interact with becomes the
And so
most
even though we
important.
had absolutely nothing to offer as a faction, we ended up having some of the most interactions in the campaign.
Yeah. So again, that concept of memeing things into existence, you did not have any treasure. You were way too far away, but because
Like
you
come
were fun,
vacation in the United Caveman Federation.
yeah, because you were fun and funny, people wanted to experience that. They wanted to have a caveman memory. They wanted to leave their character's mark on that part of the game world, and your power came from that. It's fascinating to me. It's just it's just jokes and memes and games gave you a competitive advantage in the Bronstein. It was the perception of reality became the reality.
Yeah.
Not John Daker says, although we always played it this way, people never said a dang word about it. The bros will show their work, good or bad. That's a good point. That's a good point. It's out there. You can say, "Oh, we've never stopped playing this way," but if you didn't blog about it and you never shared it or did a video or anything, how's anyone supposed to know? Macho says Ringo still lives. He has a ragtag tribe of misfits south of Minas Mandolf in the Bandit
Yeah,
Mountain.
the funny thing is Ringo almost never saw much action himself. Like the only time he was really important was for the second Battle of Mount Glovermore, and I think he got charm personed by some demon or something halfway through the battle. But
Yeah, I remember running across him playing in Macho's game, and they were kind of in a sad state. They were like in this cave that had an ocean or like a
well,
shore in it.
that's because Ringo got kicked out as the head of the United Caveman Federation. The cavemen all decided to make Macho Mandolph the new head chief.
Of course, he's the alpha, right? But like they kept having things wash up on shore. Like I got the feeling they were coming from another dimension or another plane. These monsters would come out, and the cavemen were kind of having to kill them before they could get loose on the world. And it was just like, do people know how much they owe to these brave cavemen who are just stabbing every dinosaur that wallers up out of this thing? I'll let Macho speak to that if he wants to. Kess says the Bro XT is getting a little too big for their britches. Put a pin in October of this year. Ooh, you heard it here first, y'all. There might be some more Brovenloft winds a blowing for October of this year. October is coming.
I
Interesting stuff.
mean, Brovenloft's probably stacked floor to ceiling with glowing zombies at this point because nobody ever bothered to stop little newbie.
Little newbie. Oh man.
Highway of Light, man. Nobody ever stopped it except for the Dacrosaurus, one branch.
Was he the 30 hit dice or 300 hit dice creature, the Dacrosaurus?
No, but the Dacrosaurus did show up there. The Dacrosaurus showed up, got blown up because I don't remember if it was Asmodeus or whoever got their hands on Asmodeus's scepter. Managed to zap it.
He says the Dacrosaurus is napping for
somehow
now.
the Catholic Church ended up with a planetar on their side that they sent to fight on behalf of the Vampire King.
That's the thing. If you even try to explain what happened, it is so over the top. Spoiler: the pool in Ringo's cave is actually connected to somewhere in the UCF. Henchmen, all the dinosaurs coming through. I think he meant hence all the dinosaurs coming through. Maybe he didn't. Maybe he meant henchmen. So yeah, it's just for me, it's fun to hear about what it was like to play from the guys. And like you say, you're just playing, but then when you look back, you're like, wow, we really did stuff that people hadn't even talked about doing, even if they were secretly doing and not telling everyone, and they always played that way. The kind of experiences you have to go way back to when wargamers were sending troops between tables between Minnesota and Lake Geneva.
We aren't playing the same student protest Bronstein 50 years in a row.
That's true. but that idea that
dance cards.
A lot of Bronsteins still have a dance in them, though. That's the weird thing. Even Moonstein, last turn, the Soggy Bottom Boys were performing. One of the counts had bought out the whole Roadhouse. There's always a dance for some reason. My guys usually miss it because we're out in an ATV trying to get drugs.
Where credit's due, David Wesley did meme Promstein into existence, and it was just as cringe as I thought it would be.
Promstein,
J and HG.
Yeah, man, J and HG. That was, man. So you saw that episode? That was a doozy. Yeah. That
was a really good episode.
My jaw dropped several times hearing about all that stuff, and yeah, interesting stuff. All right, man. Well, I'm not going to keep nerding out and dragging more and more out of you. I have thoroughly enjoyed this conversation, and you have an open invitation if you ever want to come back on This Is Dundermoose. If you want to share what you're working on next, or just keep regaling me of the old days of Trilopulus and stuff. Thank you so much for coming on. And
yeah, thanks for having me. It was great being on.
And if you guys enjoyed this, whether you watched it live in the chat or whether you're catching us on the replay, go ahead and give us some encouragement. If you like this, go ahead and give it a thumbs up so we know this was something you liked. And if you want to catch more stuff like this, go ahead and subscribe. And in the meantime, look out for that next issue of Cirsova. And we hope you have a great night and some great gaming.